Well, what a week that was. Quite extraordinary. No political story or current affairs story that I've ever been involved in have I received such an absolute deluge of telephone calls, texts, and emails. And I promise you, for those that have written in, I'm getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning and doing my best to answer you. I'm way behind, but I'm doing my best. What's been really pleasing is that this is beginning to be seen by all sensible people as being a non-partisan political issue. It is an absolutely fundamental question about free speech. It goes right to the heart of how we want to live our lives. After all, if you can control people's money, if you can effectively take them out of the system, well, you can get rid of political opponents or people whose views you do not like. So a massive thanks to all of you, including Labour MPs like Jess Philips, but in particular, the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, and indeed the Minister, Andrew Griffith, who has taken action. He's calling 19 of the big banks into Downing Street this week to say, do not cancel people as a result of their views. The rules are going to change. There'll need to be a notice period of 90 days and a proper reason given. So that's rapid change, and it's all in the right direction. And now there is a really big debate going on. But this is far from over. Some people say, oh, well, Nigel, you've won. Well done. You got an apology from Dame Alison Rose of the NatWest Group. Well, fine, but it wasn't much, frankly, of an apology. I'm still seeking an apology from the BBC. And to be fair to the Director General, Tim Davie, he has acknowledged my letter, and I'm expecting a result back from the BBC CEO, Deborah Turness, at some point today. I've now put subject access requests into NatWest. I want to find out how closely Dame Alison Rose was involved in the decision. And I still can't help feeling, I don't know about you, but when Simon Jack, the BBC business editor, rings me at 9 o'clock on the morning of the 4th of July to say the reason the account was closed was because they didn't have enough money, the fact that he had dinner and sat next to Dame Alison Rose the night before, I don't think that's a coincidence. I don't believe that it can be a coincidence. And Boris Johnson, I must thank as well, unusually, because he wrote a very strong piece on that in the Mail on Saturday. But we're going to keep going with this because something has gone very, very badly wrong. Yeah, of course, we know there is massive laundering of drugs money around the world. But right at the minute, they're not the people being hit. It's ordinary folk that are being hit. There's hardly anybody I meet when I go out that runs a small business that hasn't had nightmares with their bank. And just think about it. We bailed them out as a result of their greed and stupidity. They, in return, now make vast profits, 35 billion quid a year the British banking industry made. And in return, they close our branches, get rid of ATMs, and don't want customers whose businesses involve taking cash. But that is not. Even the many thousands, probably tens of thousands, who've had their business accounts closed, and people write to me in absolute desperation. Now, here's the worst of it. That subject access request I got back from Coutts, which, by the way, I did not want to publish. It contained within it a whole mass of libelous accusations, of horrible things said about me, taken off some of the worst, most anti-Brexit websites that could possibly exist. But I had to publish it, despite the damage to my reputation, because it was the only way I could disprove the briefing that was given to the BBC. And what was that report? Well, it was some graduate or two sitting around, going through the internet, finding all the worst things they could possibly find. But here is the point. I warned last week about this, that Refinitiv, who are one of the big global credit agencies, are now working with UK banks to monitor social media. No, not my social media, your social media. And it turns out that the 4 biggest banks in the UK, if you delve into the terms and conditions, you are given them the right to troll through your social media. So if you're a Brexiteer, if you happen to think that those crossing the English Channel in small boats are not good for this country, if you genuinely tend to believe that 7-year-old kids who are white should not be told they're oppressors, and if they're black, they should be victims, if you stand up against any of this woke tide, you too are in danger of having your bank account closed. And unless we fight this, unless we check this, that is where we're going. Canadian government did it against the truckers that were protesting. This literally is now a battle for everything we believe in. Do you want freedom, or do you want to live in communist China? Do you want to live in a social credit system where basically, unless you have the accepted view of the day, you can't participate fully in life? So far from this campaign being over, it hasn't even begun. The job of banks, and especially banks that have been bailed out by us, and in the case of the NatWest Group, are 39% owned by us, the job of banks is to provide banking services, not to become a moral arbiter. So I'm going to keep fighting this, and I can assure you from my end, every single option is on the table. I've been libeled, I've been defamed, but this isn't about me. It's about the businesses that have been closed, and ultimately the fact they can use this, they can use your account as a political tool to get rid of anybody with a vaguely conservative opinion. I promise you this, I haven't even started yet.